When Avengers Endgame was being filmed, Marvel took serious precautions when marketing the film to prevent spoilers from getting out, because this film was wrapping up a storyline that Marvel had spent 12 years building towards. Excitement was at an all-time high, and people around the world couldn't wait for this film to release on April 27th in 2018. And just 10 days before the film's release, Marvel had a leak, a major leak that no one saw coming and would do so much damage for the fans. 5 minutes of footage from Endgame was leaked online from someone who recorded scenes from the start of the film all the way to the final battle at Avengers HQ. The Russo brothers, who were the directors of Avengers Endgame, wanted fans to go into theaters and watch Endgame without knowing which direction the film was heading in, to the point where they didn't even reveal the title of the film until the first trailer, which only came out 5 months before the movie's release. Originally, when Marvel announced both movies back in 2014, they said that these films would be a two-parter, and it would be Infinity War Part 1 and 2. It's just a matter of time until the new names are announced for the films. The intention is we will change it, said the Russo brothers 2 years before Infinity War came out. As Infinity War approached its release, there was never an official title for Avengers 4, and one of the reasons comes from Kevin Feige, who said that the title for Avengers 4 itself was a spoiler. So this made fans label the film temporarily as Avengers 4, expecting the announcement to come out after Infinity War. When Thanos snapped his fingers and we saw half the universe disappear and turn into dust, there couldn't possibly be any more spoilers for Avengers 4. Well, apparently there were. You had to have been there because the Russo brothers had everybody waiting for this title announcement like it was the premiere of the movie. It was an excruciating amount of time to wait just for the title of a movie fans were already invested in and going to see. At the premiere for Guardians of the Galaxy 2, there was a moment where Zoe Saldana was getting asked about shooting scenes for the upcoming Avengers films, and she revealed that her and the other Guardians finished filming for Infinity War and had to go back for Gauntlet.
What can you tell us if you're in Infinity War?
We're in the middle of it. I think that the Guardians just shot their part when it comes to Infinity War's, like, the first part, and we all have to go back for Gauntlet later this year.
This slip-up turned out to be an actual leak for what was once the original title for Avengers 4. The Russo brothers even confirmed this in an interview after both films released, explaining that the title at one point was Infinity Gauntlet.
Second choice for the name besides Endgame? There must have been.
It was Gauntlet, Infinity Gauntlet for a long time.
Even though the draft title got leaked, the real title also ended up leaking way earlier than Marvel would have wished. Marvel only announced the title for Endgame on December 7th, just a mere 4.5 months before the film came out. And just 2 months after Infinity War came out, somebody on the crew of Endgame made a mistake. Trent Olpik, the cinematographer for Infinity War and Endgame, decided to add a little update to his resume page. When listing all of the films that he had been working on in recent years, he wrote down Avengers 3, Infinity War, and Avengers 4, Endgame. There were a lot of people who were guessing that Endgame would be the title because of what Doctor Strange said, and you would think that would have been the end of the whole title fiasco. No. No is what the Russo brothers had to say when asked about Endgame being the title for Avengers 4. They were asked if the title to Avengers 4 was ever said during Infinity War, and they said no. They also said that nobody online had correctly guessed the title for Avengers 4, and that the closest title was Avengers Forever. As it usually goes for the internet and Marvel fans, people began to theorize on what the real title could be. Some of the popular title guesses were Avengers Annihilation, Avengers Assembled, Avengers Disassembled, Avengers Eternity, Avengers Secret Invasion. Yes, people thought the Skrulls were gonna show up. Mark Ruffalo was sent on a PR stunt to go into Jimmy Fallon and pretend to leak the title for Avengers 4. He ended up blurting out the name and they censored it on air.
Of the next Avengers movie is...
Using the powerful skills of editing, people were able to take away the bleep, and you could hear him say Avengers The Last Avenger. This was a fake title that the Russo brothers gave Mark Ruffalo, and he just said this on air so they could draw up hype and excitement for the official announcement when they would give out the title. And when the title was finally announced, people went, oh, so they were lying. The Russo brothers ended up justifying their line by saying that nobody in the film actually said Avengers Endgame, which the question was the title said in the movie? And yes, nobody said Avengers Endgame, but they said Endgame in the movie. A full year before Endgame, a couple pieces of concept art leaked online in the summer, showing us the team roster for Avengers Endgame and giving us a better idea of what this film would look like, the characters, the suits they were wearing, and what could possibly be happening in that film. The first standout was Professor Hulk, and in this photo, it resembled a mix of Mark Ruffalo and Hulk. It confirmed to us that Professor Hulk would be in the film, and it also gave us our first look at Captain Marvel and her new suit, and also what her powers would look like. We also got to see our missing Avengers, Hawkeye and Ant-Man, who were both absent in Infinity War and confirming that they weren't snapped away by Thanos. Almost everyone in this photo also had a new suit or character design or a new look. The two other photos showed us Captain Marvel and another design for Thanos. This time he had a sword, basically confirming that the Thanos copter would make an appearance in Avengers Endgame. These photos would give us our first and only looks at some characters until we got to see the movie, because in all of the promotion for Endgame, they used a limited amount of footage to keep fans in the dark and give them a vague idea of what the film was about. For example, the scene of Tony and Cap when they were shaking hands was when they time traveled back to the first Avengers film, which did end up leaking online too. Marvel decided to make the decision to film both Avengers Infinity War and Endgame back to back at the same time, to reduce the time between the films and keep actors in the dark for what movie they were actually filming. Infinity War had its fair share of set photos leaking from them using public locations, and Endgame had the same thing happening when filming, and this was a nightmare. Photos of Captain America, Iron Man, and Hulk in the location of the Battle of New York in the first Avengers film were captured. Robert Downey Jr. wasn't seen wearing his casual Iron Man suit, but instead a jumpsuit he had on, but Chris Evans was wearing the Captain America suit from the first Avengers, and there was Mark Ruffalo in his usual mocap suit. What stood out the most and started the conversation about time travel was Ant-Man being in these scenes. In these photos, the cast were also wearing these watches, which also hinted towards the possibility of time travel happening. Robert Downey Jr. had one strapped around his hands, and so did the other cast members. There were also photos showing scenes of Thor and Iron Man escorting Loki out of the bottom of the building, surrounded by S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. Tom Hiddleston wasn't there on the day they shot this scene, but his stunt double was. From all of the behind-the-scenes set pictures that came out, it was reasonable to assume that time travel would be a plot device in Avengers Endgame.
How do you feel about time travel as a device in film? Just curious, just a general question.
Big fan of the technique. Yeah, Back to the Future. So.
There were some other minor behind-the-scenes photos that got out. One showing the background set to Asgard, where Thor and Rocket would go to retrieve the Reality Stone. Other photos showing the lead up to the scene at the diner where Ant-Man meets Professor Hulk for the first time. Nothing gave away Mark Ruffalo or the Hulk being involved with that scene, and the photos just looked like a typical diner. You got to see Black Widow with her red hair again, and it did show Chris Evans seeing Anthony Russo's kids, who ended up starring in the scene to get a photo with Professor Hulk. A photo of Gwyneth Paltrow wearing a new Iron Man suit ended up leaking on Reddit and Instagram. The suit she was wearing was blue, and with the green screen in the background, you could see she decided to take a photo on the set. In the comics, there was a storyline where Pepper Potts got her own Iron Man suit, and she was called Rescue. Some people thought this photo signified that Pepper would be replacing Iron Man, which wasn't the case. Around the same time in the fall, there was an early toy leak showing Rocket and Groot in these matching jumpsuits. They both had the Avengers logos on them, and they're wearing these red and white stripes on them, and they were known as the Quantum Realm suits. The package was also using the same designs from the leaked concept art that came out in the summer, and later more photos of all the Avengers wearing the Quantum Realm suits would leak online, which only reinforced the idea that this would be a time travel movie. For the toy of Thor and Rocket, the package had a written description on it, which briefly hinted that there was a greater threat. And as the internet does, people began to theorize, and some thought that there was a new villain for Avengers Endgame. Which goes to show that toy leaks can be extremely misleading when it comes to showing accurate plot details for the film. For example, there were Lego sets that came out that had nothing to do with the plot at all, such as this Lego set where Captain America is fighting the Outriders while riding a motorcycle that shoots flames, or this other one that was semi-accurate to where the battle took place, but it showed Thanos using a sledgehammer while fighting the Avengers, and a missed opportunity again with the Thanos copter. Instead, Nebula was flying it. The other Lego sets would contain weapons or vehicles that didn't appear in the film, and were just temporary toys for Marvel to sell until later down the line they would sell accurate Avengers Endgame toys, which they are currently doing right now. But all of these leaks I've shared don't compare to what Marvel and Disney had to face 10 days before the film's release. Even with all the calculated decisions to heavily alter trailer footage, create toys that don't reveal anything about the plot details, Marvel had their biggest leak in history. Someone ended up leaking 5 minutes of footage using their phone when they were watching the movie during a private screening. All of the work Marvel had done to keep things under wraps went down the drain, because this was clear HD footage that was undeniable and didn't look fan-made. To keep this video from spreading across the internet, Disney decided to take down any videos on YouTube or Reddit that shared footage or showed any screenshots of the leak. All of this happened before short form content feeds were as popular as they are today, and if this ended up happening now, I truly don't think there would be anything they could do to censor it on the internet. The footage starts out by showing us a scene of Professor Hulk, the first video confirmation that this character would be in the film.
1950s. Excuse me?
He's kidding.
Then directly cutting to Hulk and Thor hugging each other, and Rocket getting a good smell of Thor's underbelly. While Professor Hulk was rumored to be in some parts of the film, this also revealed that Thor had a completely new look and build, something Marvel worked really hard to keep a secret by removing Fat Thor from many of the trailers and also using footage that wasn't in the movie. Then we get the iconic scene of all the Avengers walking together in slow motion in their quantum realm suits, about to travel back in time. Then we see Captain America, Iron Man, Ant-Man, and Hulk time travel back to the original events of the Battle of New York. We then get a fight of Captain America fighting his older self. We can see them throwing some punches between each other, but it wasn't clear who was going to win. Then the next clip opens with showing Hulk's body as he's putting his hand into something, which then ends up revealing that it's the Stark Gauntlet. As he's wearing the gauntlet, we can see it start to burn his skin and he's screaming out in a lot of pain. The camera shows the other Avengers who are nervous on what's going to happen, and we can see Steve yelling out Bruce. After that, we get our first official look at Thanos in the movie, and we see him go up against Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor. As that clip is wrapping up, we cut to an underground cave which seems to be collapsing on itself. Then we see that Hulk is actually the one holding it up, which is a reference to something that happened in the comics. Then it cuts to Thanos getting clubbed in the face by Mjolnir being wielded by Captain America. Then we end up cutting to when Captain America is alone, about to go up against Thanos' entire army.
On your left.
We get to see a lot of the Avengers assemble scene with all of the portals opening up and people coming back from the dead. Then we get to hear Cap say the famous lines, "Avengers assemble," and everybody charges in against Thanos. Tony and Peter reuniting after Tony hadn't seen him in 5 years. Then we see Captain Marvel fly through Thanos' ship, going down on the ground to see Peter Parker, who's holding the Stark Gauntlet. It's quite shocking how all this was able to get out, and believe it or not, the person who leaked this ended up sharing this to their Instagram. During some of the segments, you can see the person's old username. I tried checking, but the account doesn't seem to be available anymore. Disney and Marvel decided to handle this by not addressing it at all, so when news outlets ended up reaching out to them about the leak, they said nothing. When the actors were doing press for the film, it was never brought up or even acknowledged that this massive leak happened. There was also an anonymous leaker on Twitter who ended up tweeting leaks about Avengers Endgame. He shared a lot of details about scenes that would be in the movie, and even leaked plans for future Marvel movies that Marvel had planned down the road, which are even coming true now 7 years later. They ended up sharing that Marvel had plans for a brand new trilogy, the Thunderbolts team, but they had a completely different roster of characters for the team that we now know today. They planned to have the leader be the main villain for the first Thunderbolts movie, but that would end up happening for Captain America 4, where we also got to see General Ross in it. The Russo brothers have returned to direct Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars, and I'm sure they'll be taking even more precautions this time to prevent leaks from happening. Or maybe they won't have to, with all the people making fake leaks with AI. I also made a video covering all of the leaks for Infinity War, so you can click here to check that out if you haven't already. Thank you.